Now available in paperback and e-readers, The Temptation of John Haynes. Given to temptation, pick up this action-packed African-American paranormal romance. Get The Temptation of John Haynes in paperback and e-readers today. Recently, your Dr. Anthony Fauci admitted to moving the goalpost on the herd immunity as related to the COVID-19 pandemic. And your Dr. Anthony Fauci stated that he did this because he felt the American people were not able to hear the truth. Now, when I take a critical examination of Dr. Fauci's statements as related to moving the goalpost, it shows me that your Dr. Fauci's ethics have become completely compromised. Because in a pandemic that has cost over 300,000 people their lives and has led to the near economic collapse of the United States of America, you would think the leading professional who is in charge of infectious diseases would understand why it's important to be transparent and why it's important to go out here and present the truth to the American people, no matter how painful it is for them to hear. And the reason why a seasoned professional would want to tell the truth is because they understand the importance of maintaining the public trust. Because the critical question I would have to ask a Dr. Anthony Fauci is this: how are we supposed to trust the science when the scientist has admitted to lying? Because when I look at his behavior in this case as related to talking about moving the goalpost as related to this COVID-19 pandemic, it shows me that he really does not understand the importance of maintaining public trust during a pandemic like this. Because when you have the leading expert on infectious diseases making a confession to lying to the American people, that just makes them not trust him anymore, and it makes more and more people distrustful of any sort of advice given to them by other groups like the Centers for Disease Control and the World Health Organization. And that puts more Americans' health at risk, because if we can't trust the scientist, then we can't trust the science that he goes out here and tells us to follow. So this guy is telling us we need to trust the science. Politicians like Joe Biden and Andrew Cuomo tell us we need to trust the science. However, if the foundation of the science is made to be compromised by the scientist, then we have a problem with that whole foundation, because that foundation we're supposed to trust is made unstable, and that leads to the complete collapse of the whole foundation as related to this whole issue. So to tell people to trust the science when the scientist has admitted to lying is not something people are going to want to go with, because people need to be able to trust that the scientist is going to be honest, the scientist is going to be transparent, and the scientist is going to be straightforward, because that's what we need in order to be able to maintain a healthy society. I mean, when I really take a critical examination of your Dr. Anthony Fauci's behavior, it reminds me a lot of the beta male nice guys I often talk about in books that I write, like The Man Crisis. And oftentimes, when it comes down to these beta male nice guys, they oftentimes think it's okay for them to lie to people. However, if the next man, like a Donald Trump, goes out here and lies to the people, then he's a bad guy, but he cannot see the evil he's doing himself. And when it comes down to a lot of these quote-unquote nice guys, they believe they are acting in your best interest and doing what is right for you. But in actuality, that's just a lie they tell to themselves so that they can feel better about manipulating people And when you have people like this nice guy who goes out here and lies to people with malice of forethought, he actually does more damage because his lies oftentimes do more harm to others, because when he lies to people, he keeps them from finding out truths and allowing them the opportunity to make decisions based on the truth as related to things. Now, oftentimes when it comes down to these nice guys, again, they believe they're acting in your best interest, but in actuality, they're acting in their own self interest. And oftentimes, they are out here acting in their own self interest because they oftentimes don't want their smooth world to be disrupted by your feelings of anger as related to the truth. And in order to try to pacify you and keep you from being angry, what they do is tell you a lie in order to keep you from exploding at them in rage. And that's all because they don't want to deal with your feelings, not understanding you have a right to your feelings, and it's better that you deal with those feelings of the truth and go out here and accept that truth rather than lie. And usually what happens is with these guys, they go out here and they hide information from people thinking they're doing the right thing, but in actuality what they're doing is going out here and hurting people even more. Because when you go out here and you lie to someone, what you're doing is misleading them, and that's something most of your nice guys really don't understand, because they think it's all about protecting somebody's feelings, but the person whose feelings they're trying to protect are their own, because they don't want to deal with the conflict as related to the truth. And this is a very, again, disturbing situation, because here we have a pandemic in this country that has put millions of people's lives at risk, cost 300,000 people their lives, and instead of the leading expert in infectious diseases thinking about presenting the truth to the American people so that they can digest the facts of this whole pandemic, he decides to lie and, even worse, move the goalpost. And those are unethical actions because you're stringing people along and misleading them, and you're supposed to be the guy who we're supposed to trust. But this is a complete violation of people's trust. And when you violate people's trust, then it leads to the fueling of the fire on these conspiracy theories that have been pervasive throughout your social media, and it adds credence and credibility to them. So when I look at this whole situation, it's not really a good thing to sit here and say, oh, I admit to misleading people, because that just makes it where you're appearing to be unethical. And you have, again, politicians talking about we need to trust the science, but how can we trust the science when the scientist has admitted to lying to us? And he wants us to go along with his gut and his emotions. And that's another trait of a beta male, is he wants us to go along with his feelings. But if we're supposed to trust the science, then we have to trust the facts. And it's hard to trust the facts when the facts are being manipulated by someone who is going on feelings, and somebody who I believe is going on feelings because he's caught up in the attention he's receiving and trying to keep things stringing along in order to continue getting his 15 minutes of fame as related to this pandemic. Because if the pandemic ends, then he can no longer receive attention from the public. And because he can't receive attention from the public, then he's afraid that people won't want to talk to him anymore. So when I listen to this decision that he's made, it reeks of insecurity, and it just again shows how detached he is from the American people. and how disconnected he is from the American people. He's not really thinking about the suffering of the American people. It's all about his feelings, and that's something a expert should not be thinking about is feelings. They have to think about the objective facts, because when you have half the country out of work, when you have people out here suffering, and you have people struggling, you need to present the truth. And we need somebody who can present the truth in a trustworthy manner, because if you sit here and admit to lying and admit to moving the goalpost, then people are going to call BS on you. And eventually, what you're going to do is keep moving the goalpost until you eventually run out of room. And when you get cornered, that's when you have to deal with an angry mob of people who have nothing to lose, and people who will be justifiably angry because they have been misled by an individual who could have easily just told the truth from minute one, but he escalated the situation into a situation which turns into a powder keg. And that's par for the course with your nice guys, because a lot of times with these nice guys, they think they're doing right by you, but in actuality, they're trying to do things to try to weasel out of any sort of accountability or responsibility. And that's because they don't want to deal with conflict, and they don't want to deal with issues of people's emotions. But if you're in a position where you need to be responsible for the lives of millions of people, you have to understand that there are more important things than feelings. People will understand if they get told the truth, and if you tell the truth, people won't have a problem with you. But if you sit there and lie to people, they're gonna have a problem, because when I see with a lot of these nice guys, they'll talk about how they're such a good man, how they want to do the right thing, but and when they get caught doing wrong, they try to find ways to justify their wrong. And to sit there and justify his wrong, that's again a typical nice guy beta male trait that a lot of these guys don't really see. Is it turns people away from them, it alienates people, and it alienates people because instead of coming out and telling people the truth so that they can process that truth, you thought it was okay to lie to them, and then you get upset because they lie to you, and they're upset because they thought they could trust you. And this is something the nice guy doesn't understand, is that when people believe that they have this guy they think that they can trust, and they stab them in the back, that's the thing that hurts more than anything, because they thought, oh, I could trust this guy. I thought he was acting in my best interest, but instead of him acting in my best interest, he was acting in his own best interest, and he just lied. And that's why a lot of times when you have females out here, they really hate nice guys, because the nice guy, he pretends to be your friend, he pretends to care, and then he goes out here and he talks about how the other guy is a jerk, but in a lot of cases, he doesn't see how much of a jerk he actually is, because he goes out here and believes that he is entitled to mislead people, he is entitled to mistreat people, he is entitled to go out here because he is so-called good. He believes that it is his right as a quote-unquote good person to get away with doing one thing wrong, and he thinks it's okay for him to go out here and lie to people, mislead people, because he's doing it for the right reasons. But that's hypocritical, because he will go out here and say the other guy is a bad guy because he does these things, but he's more of a bad guy because he lies to himself and says, oh, I'm okay with doing this because I'm a quote-unquote good person, but the other guy is a bad guy because he does it. But the other guy is I would say, a better person, because at least he's honest about what he's doing. I mean, you can call a jerk, but at least he's honest and upfront and transparent. And that's why people, in some cases, prefer jerks, because the jerk at least tells you the truth and he's at least transparent with you, so you know where you stand. And if you know where you stand, you can know where you're going. And in this case, when I look at this country, we need somebody who we can trust so we can set a direction. And it's hard to say, I can trust this guy after he made these statements, because you're sitting there admitting to having compromised ethics. And in the field of medicine, we can't really have guys like this with compromised ethics, because if we're supposed to trust the science, then the scientist has to be honest from minute one. They have to be transparent from minute one. And they cannot go out here manipulating information and manipulating people's emotions, because we have a lot on the line here. I mean, people are basically, we have half the country unemployed. We have people who are on the brink. And we have a lot of people whose mental health has been, as I see it, really suffered as a result. And this man, instead of thinking about the overall consequences to all of the American people, he wasn't thinking about that. He was thinking, I can move the goalpost. And again, that's not your job as a medical professional to move the goalpost. That's something completely unethical to do, when so many people's emotional health and mental health and their economic situation are at risk. And there are so many factors out here he didn't think about, because he was in his feelings and not understanding that these are people's lives on the line. And instead of thinking about their lives, all he was caught up in is his ego. And that again shows a complete lack of ethics. But when you have these guys out here, these nice guys, they never think about doing right by people, because in most cases it's all about them. If you'd like to see me make more videos like this, you can donate to my Patreon, my PayPal, and my Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. And if you want to learn more about the dysfunctional behavior of beta males, you can pick up my books, The Man Crisis and Stop Simping, on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. You can also find them on Smashwords, the iBookstore, and Google Play. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe.
Now available in paperback and Kindle Unlimited, The Man Crisis. Learn why so many men are struggling to find their way in an increasingly gynocentric world in The Man Crisis. Get your copy of The Man Crisis in paperback and Kindle Unlimited today.